Damien was sitting in the break room of the Juggernaut, the dwarf-class industrial ship he worked on for the past 8 years. He was running system diagnostics remotely when he saw Galeen and Triis walk in. They were Augurians, a bipedal avian-type species. Damien rose and dipped his head while spreading out his arms, a recreation of a traditional Augurian greeting. "Good meeting," he said. The two repeated the greeting and sat down. "Good morning, Damien. What are you doing here all alone?" Galeen asked. "Rummaging through performance statistics and ship diagnostics," he said offhandedly. Triis looked around. "From here? How?" she questioned. "Oh, that's right. You probably haven't seen one before. I have a neural interface. It lets me view and control a few of the ship's systems." He turned his head and revealed the neural port just behind his right ear. "Pretty handy, huh?" "You mean you have a machine inside of you?" Galeen was taken aback. "Yeah, not too many species can tolerate this kind of stuff, but it's really useful," Damien shrugged. "Do all human workers have neural interfaces?" Triis examined the port thoughtfully. Damien perked up. "Oh no, I only have this thing because I used to be a soldier." "You don't seem like a warrior," Galeen blurted out. Triis shot him a glare, and Galeen hurried to correct himself. I mean no offense. I have trouble telling different human castes apart." Damien laughed. "No offense taken. Humans don't really have castes in any particular sense. Not anymore, at least." He thought for a moment. "I was a pilot in the First Contact War." The two froze. Few Exos ever heard much about the First Contact War, humanity's great debut to the galaxy. Galeen dropped his voice to just above a whisper as he asked, "What was the war like?" He craned his head, a sign of curiosity. Triis threw him another glare. "Galeen, how rude. That's not something you just ask so suddenly." Damien paused a moment to let the two bicker before responding. "If you really want to know, I'll tell you." The two of them stopped and looked at him. Their head feathers fanned out. Was that surprise? "Just before I do, you must understand this is our past. It's not who we are now. You have to understand that." Damien's normal smile vanished from his face, and his usual chipper tone was replaced by one that none of the Augurans had heard before. They each nodded and leaned in. "Are either of you aware of the Nifrexi?" The two exchanged puzzled looks. There used to be an expansive race that spanned 4 star systems, totaling about 26 planets. Damien unclipped his holoview from his arm cuff and placed it on the table. It flickered to life and displayed a star map. Damien traced a line through several star systems and highlighted the borders. They occupy what is now a dominant trade and relay system between the human, Hungir, and Pruside. The Nefrexi are a scattered people now, galactic nomads. The reason for this is the First Contact War. He paused and let his words sink in. Triis' eyes widened and Damien continued. Humanity was a fledgling race. By the time the Nefrexi arrived, we had colonized 2 other planets in our home system. We had semi-permanent colonial stations on 2 others, and research stations on the rest. We were even beginning to construct some structures around our home star. He tinkered with the holoview, and the image shifted to one of the old home system. We were a modest people, toiling away, making gradual but steady progress. We had discovered life on a few of our planets, albeit microscopic, but it reignited the human passion of discovery. We got to thinking about what all could be out there. Extrasolar exploration missions were discussed in earnest. The future seemed so bright. The holoview flicked through animations and scenes of human development across the solar system. Damien smiled, and his eyes were shining as he watched, but despite these signs, Triis could sense no happiness in his words. Damien's face contorted and tightened. His tone grew harsh and low. The Augurans tensed at the sight. They had only heard quiet whispers about human anger before. It was a startling sight. We never got the chance to reach out on our own. We had long imagined what first contact with another spacefaring race would entail. Stories that reached back for as long as humans were aware of extraterrestrial planets, but no one realistically imagined that they would come to us, especially the way they did. The HoloView focused in on Neptune, Minerva 1, the largest astronomical research center ever built. It consisted of over 100 stations that collectively acted as a planet-sized telescope for ultra-deep cosmic observation. He beamed with pride at the sight, and he clenched his hands into fists as the view dissolved into chaos. Distress calls and images of destruction pour from the HoloView. They attacked without warning. No attempt at communication, no mercy, nothing. They wiped the planet clean and set up their own harvesting facilities to start stripping the planet. 17,573. He let the number hang in the air and left it without further explanation. The view zoomed back out to the solar system. Humans had hoped for the best. We are optimists, after all, but we always prepare for the worst. We knew that this force represented a colossal threat to the future of all mankind, so we retreated. Research stations abandoned, colonies evacuated, resources pooled. The greatest minds of the era were collected. In a way, it was a great leap forward. The research stations throughout the solar system were the collective efforts of Earth's major power. Their destruction represented an attack on humanity itself. In less than 2 months, those factions had signed the most comprehensive pacts and peace treaties in all of human history. We were unified for the first time, and the act of untold aggression had galvanized our efforts. Factories and production facilities sprung up in record time. Research centers were ablaze with development. Every vessel with the capacity for space travel was retrofitted with makeshift weaponry. We knew we couldn't manage a head-on confrontation, not yet anyway, so we focused on information gathering. The HoloView showed the early human offensive. Weaponized shipping freighters and exploratory drones hit fast and hard. Small nips at the heels of the Nephrexi fleet. Individual enemy ships were taken out before the makeshift human warships disappeared again. We took heavy losses initially, but we profited greatly. Small bits of Nephrexi tech found their way into our manufacturing centers. Before long, the first true human fleet was born. The first generations of stellar naval pilots took to the sky. They didn't last long. The early iterations of neural interfaces placed a great deal of stress on the nervous system. Every soldier then knew that, of course. They all knew the sacrifice they were making, and they did so without hesitation. The ships on display were crude in their construction, bulky, and rudimentary versions of the Nephrexi cruisers. Damien stared at those early pilots. He reflexively touched his own neural port as he watched the human fleet make their way across the solar system. By the time we had them developed, the Nephrexi had already populated Neptune, Uranus, and Jupiter. They were also beginning their harvest of the outer asteroid belt, so we struck the most vital points. We severed supply lines and starved them out. We learned of subspace communication and worked to decipher and scatter it. We disabled their manufacturing plants and left them vulnerable. Most importantly, we learned. Every battle gave us more knowledge, every victory earned us more technology, and every defeat hardened our resolve. Eventually, the Nephrexi were driven out. The solar system was ours. The sun shined on our newly hardened civilization. The ultimate prize of which was the FTL drive, reconstructed from a Nephrexi cruiser, and so began the dawn of humanity's stellar age. Damien paused for a moment longer. He wished he could have ended the story there, but the history was as unchangeable as it was unbearable. We harvested the power and resources that the Nephrexi had sought to usurp, and we pursued them from one system to the next, burning everything in our path. We even took some inspiration from them and converted those taken worlds. Factories the size of planets, shipyards the size of moons. Soon, we found ourselves on the galactic stage, standing before the interspecies compact. Scenes from the galactic scene played quickly. Humans receiving official recognition from the delegation, trade agreements and treaties being signed. We were a very adaptable people. We quickly incorporated and even improved most technologies. We owned a fair bit of resources and had plenty of goods to trade. Our cultural exports became some of the most desired in the compact, and our reputation as Death Worlders earned us as much respect as it did animosity. We were denser, stronger, and hardier than most. We could endure in a wide range of environments and survive otherwise lethal encounters. The very thing that made us detestable also made us indispensable. So, when the topic of our offensive against the Nephrexi was brought before us, few rushed to defend them. The audio from that fateful Senate meeting boomed. A Nephrexi representative stepped forward and spoke. The Nephrexi are prepared to officially recognize the status of the newly incorporated human delegation as a full-fledged member of the Interspecies Compact. As such, we are ready to cease all military action towards their species, and yield the currently occupied worlds to the newest members of our prestigious alliance. All told, it was a decent deal. Humanity had earned the respect of many within the Compact, had proven itself a valuable asset to the galaxy, and stood to gain several highly profitable worlds for its development. Most would have been satisfied with this deal, but the humans had a habit of being exceptional. The human representative stepped forward. His name and rank appeared next to his holoform. He was a general in the human fleet. He spoke calmly and quickly to the Nephrexi before him. 17,573 were the first words he spoke. The Nephrexi looked confused, puzzled. Chatter filled the Senate floor, but it quickly died down as he continued. Humans are, and always have been, as complex as we are simple. He paused again and allowed more curious discussion to build before speaking again. Whatever you offer us, we shall return 1,000,000,000,000 times. We welcome all species with open arms, so long as they welcome us. Do business with us, and we will be sure to arrange terms that are most agreeable to all parties. Share your technologies with us, and we will improve, mass produce, and return all of it, and more to you. Rely on us, and we will shield you from all danger. Support you in all your endeavors, talk to us, and we will share with you all that we know. Befriend us, and we shall love you as we do our own brothers and sisters. Hopeful chatter began to fill the Senate. A few cheers rang out from a few of the species that had already formed pacts with humanity. The head of the chamber had to call the meeting to order to silence the pleasant rabble that was forming. The human representative suddenly stiffened, and his eyes grew dark. He straightened his posture and looked at the Nephrexi. But if you fuck with us, make an enemy of us, then we will rain hell upon you. The Senate floor was silenced. A dreadful aura emanated from the general and penetrated the Senate floor. Tell me, Nephrexi, what is it your people offered us? The Nephrexi's antenna twitched. The general didn't wait for a response. He fiddled with his console and displayed the destruction of Minerva 1 before the Senate. 17,573, he repeated. 17,573 civilians. 17,573 innocent lives. 17,573 human souls. You offered us fire and ash, death and destruction, atrocity and cruelty. We will return it to you 1,000,000,000,000 times. He pulled up another image before the console. It is with this meeting that the human race declares war on the Nephrexi. The Senate erupted in chatter. The head of the chamber called for order. The image faded out. Damien picked up the HoloView and reattached it to his cuff. Funny how, up until that point, humans hadn't actually officially declared war on the Nephrexi. I was born around that point. Like many at the time, I was raised from birth to be a soldier in the First Contact War. Galeen and Triis looked at him with some mixture of concern and fear. We were brought up hating the Nephrexi, told that they'd be back to destroy us all one day, and that they'd eat us and burn our worlds if we didn't fight. That's abhorrent, Triis chirped. And untrue, Galeen squawked. Damien shrugged. It was true to us. It's what got us through the worst of the training. We received our neural implants at 13. We were given control of our first fleets at 18. The Agoran's head feathers perked up with worry. There's no need for concern. These implants aren't as bad as the generations prior. They've come a long way, actually. The newer models were designed to grow with us. Native AI developed code that was individualized to each pilot. It let us control whole squads of ships just as easily as we can move our own bodies. The human brain is like a supercomputer if you know how to interpret the data. So, the Nephrexi. Galeen trailed off, perhaps not wanting to finish the thought. We erased them. Damien finished it for him. We placed heavy sanctions on any race that assisted them. Destroyed any ship that was found supplying them. We offer them no quarter, no mercy. Why would the combat allow that? There are strict rules for these things. Therese appeared distressed. There weren't at the time. Damien quipped back. But there must have been plenty of support from the Nephrexi. Who would just stand back and watch a race be destroyed? She grew more distressed as she spoke. Damien dropped his head. 2 words. Psychological warfare. The Orgorians both cocked their heads. What? They asked in unison. Humans have been waging war with each other since before we could use fire. We've gotten pretty good at it, and the Nephrexi fell victim to a particularly sinister weapon of ours. Propaganda. Hollow views and data streams, eyewitness testimony, and heavily biased reports, all custom-tailored to show off the Nephrexi as warmongering expansionists, who greedily sought to step on an innocent race on their path to dominate the galaxy. With their reputation in shambles, no one would come to their aid. The Orgorans looked mortified. Damien spoke up. That feeling you have now? We feel it too. I feel it every day. He steadied himself and continued. We fought them back to their home system, then to their home world. I wasn't a part of the fleet that took their home world. I was stationed near the Outer Rim to ensure that no vessel escaped. His voice hitched, and he took a breath to right himself. The whole war lasted 136 years, and in one moment it was over. All of humanity had fought for over a century towards this one goal, and we had it. He stared at the two of them. They stared back. And the fate of the Nephrexi? Therese finally broke the silence. Who knows? Damien turned away. You, I would guess. Galeen kept his eyes fixed on Damien. As I said before, galactic nomads. They remain largely scattered throughout the galaxy, hated and scorned by the rest. The closer any given race is to humanity, the more they hate them. He spoke grimly. He stood and walked to the break room door. I've got to get back to my station. He folded his arms together and bowed. Pleasant travels, he muttered, and walked off.